incremental forever. What do you need to know about incremental forever? I think the biggest thing that we need to think about is incremental forever is not incremental backup, as you're used to. I'd never been a huge proponent of, just doing like a full backup, then incremental backup, and then full backup again, because with the old way of doing things, you needed to recover from every incremental backup in order to recover your full data. With our implementation of incremental forever, it basically does, I'll call it a synthetic backup, whereas the initial backup obviously backs up everything that it doesn't have, and then subsequent backups are just backing up files and folders that have either changed or are new, or it'll tag it for deletion if the file has been removed. So it's very easy to have a simplified backup job where I only have one backup job that is an incremental forever backup job, that I don't need to have different settings or anything else, or set up different retentions or anything like that, like you used to have to do. So with the incremental forever, it kind of reduces that complexity there. Another thing that has been asked a lot is, how does incremental forever work with removable media, such as RDX or removable USB drive or what have you. Um, so how we do this is, every piece of removable media, whatever it is, I don't care, you can even change NAS devices, if you wanted to for whatever reason. Uh, the removable media or the media itself is going to have a media file on it, so we know what's on that. And every time we back up to that piece of media, so say it's RDX disk 1, we're going to say, okay, this doesn't have a full backup on it, or it doesn't have like a the complete backup on it yet, so we need to do the complete backup. And the next time that we see that media, basically a media name, will be like, okay, so we need to just back up the files that have changed since whatever last backup was done on this. So each piece of media is always going to have, basically it's going to stand alone. You don't have to um, chain multiple pieces of media together in order to get a recoverable backup. It is just, each piece of media is standalone by itself, and it has all the changes for what has happened on that piece of media.
Nate, I'm jumping in here
Yeah,
real quick too, because I think one of the important things for that point and generally incremental forever is also, you don't have to set it up in the backup job anymore. So there
right.
is no option to say, I'm choosing incremental forever. It's by default how we're backing up the data.
That is true. And in fact, there's not even an option to say I want incremental forever or full or anything like that. It's just what it is. There's no, I want to do a full backup or a differential backup or anything like that. It's just, this is the way the backup's going to work. Retention. I'm going to go into retention very deep in just a few slides. The retention, versions of files are removed outside the retention period, but it still retains the integrity of the file and folder structure. And I think I'm going to go into that right here a little bit in depth. How does retention work with incremental forever? Okay, backup 1. I have 7 files. I'm backing up all of those. So it backs up everything like there. Backup 2, nothing changes. So I don't have any backups that have any data that has actually been written. It writes basically an index of what backup 2 was and says, hey, I had all 7 files there and they hadn't changed. Backup 3, hey, file 2, had some change. So it backed up that one file, but it still has links to all of the other 6 files. So it says, okay, hey, all these other 6 files are still in backup 3. They're still protected by backup 3, but there's no data in backup 3 to refer to those. Backup 4, file 5 and 6 basically are changed. So it has uh, those 2 backups in backup 4, along with references to the other files that have not changed in that particular one. Backup 5, nothing changes. It still just says, hey, all these files are still protected during this particular time, point in time when I did backup 5. Backup 6, hey, for whatever reason, I have a retention period of 5 days. So retention period of 5 days means, or 5 backups, and 5 days in this case. it's going to say, okay, hey, backup 1 is no longer within that retention period, but I still need to keep um, backup 1 because that's all referenced by backup 2, so I can't remove those files. If I go to the next day, so backup 7, it says, oh, hey, backup 2 is no longer within that retention period, and there's nothing in backup 2 that I need to keep around, so I can remove that entire backup. Oh, and file 2, I no longer need to keep that out of backup 1 because that is outside the retention period, but backup 3 has that new retention, that new revision of that file in there, and that's within the retention period. So that's kind of how that that needs to go, and so it'll keep going and remove the things that it doesn't need. It could remove the entire backup. It could remove just parts of the backup. It all depends on what is needed from that particular backup in order to retain the integrity of that particular retention period.
Nate, one
Yeah,
thing, maybe if you could talk a little bit in addition to the file being removed, that is only if the ref2, right, what we're seeing here
yeah,
as an
yeah,
example, file 7 ref2, if that is a complete file, if that would only be a
correct.
block of the file. Do you want to talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah. That's good call out there. Yeah. So say one of these files was a big SQL database or even a Hyper-V VM or something like that, or something that has uh, that is big enough that we're going to be doing block level changes on this. Um, so that block level change means that, hey, backup 3 or backup 4 might contain blocks in it that I need to have in order to recover that particular file, that SQL database, further down. So I can't remove that particular backup of that SQL database because I need those blocks. But it's going to remove blocks out of there if for some reason there's things that it doesn't need in order to recover the data within that retention period. And the really cool part is from a user standpoint, from your standpoint, when you go to recover. So say you want to recover backup 6 here, and I want to recover, file 3 or something like that. When you go to the restore view, it's going to show you backup 6, whatever date that was, and it's going to show you the folder path, basically the folder structure and all the files as it was on that day that you backed up. So you don't have to know anything about any of this back end um, very detailed technical part of it. You just want to say, hey, I want to recover from backup 6 and I want to recover file 3. And the software is smart enough to say, okay, you want file 3. Okay, that's revision 1. It's on backup 1. I will automatically go back to backup 1 and recover that particular file. So you don't have to tell it to go to any of this stuff. You just need to say, okay, I want to restore from backup 6, backup 7, whatever, and whatever folders and files, and we do all of the hard work behind the scenes.
And then this also works the way no matter what backup medium you're backing up to, right?
This is true. Yeah, whether it's cloud, whether it's a NAS device, USB, what have you. Yep.
So on the retention side of things, there are multiple questions that are a little bit similar. So we already talked about, right, incremental forever is the default scenario. You don't need to select anything anymore. It does it automatically. But what if, or how do I set up something like a grandfather, father, son scenario? How would that work with our current backup scheme?
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah. So grandfather, father, son, it's a good way to go about things, and the way that we've done and set up the software now, you can do a grandfather, father, son, but it's in a way that's a little bit different. So I'll kind of explain how I would set this up. So I would set up like a monthly backup job, have that monthly backup job have a retention of say a year, and so you have that one retention job, called, I'll call it grandfather, and then another job called father that would run weekly, so like maybe once every Friday or something like that, and you will have that retention set up for say 3 months or something like that. and then you'll have your daily backup job that runs every day, and you'll have that have a retention of, say, a month. So with the way that Incremental Forever does this, you'll have one job that has, a full year's worth of backups, and it's going to work a lot better actually than the previous one. It's obviously going to do a initial full every, the first time, and then every month when it runs, it's just going to look at the last full backup, or the last month's backup. It says, okay, hey, I need to do all of the files and folders that haven't been, that are changed since the last month, and then back that up. Since the new engine does not rely on the archive bit and looks at uh, the file size and modify date and some other ACL stuff, um, this is actually a lot more efficient and will actually grab all of the files for that grandfather, father, son type scheme if you want to do this. So it's actually can be implemented in the new version, and it's just 3 backup jobs instead of, multiple different backup jobs and a retention for each one and that type of thing. So you can do this, and it's actually a lot simpler than it was before.
Okay, so incremental forever with the new version, existing backup jobs versus new backup jobs. If I have existing backup jobs, do I need to do anything? Are they now incremental forever? And new backup jobs, we talked about that already a little bit, but maybe a quick
Yep, yeah,
repetition.
I
Yeah.
get where you're going. Yeah,
Yes. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So existing backup jobs will work like they always have been. They're not going to get automatically upgraded to incremental forever or anything like that. They're just going to work how they have always worked for you. There's no differences there or anything like that. But if you create a new job and back up to the new device type, it will be an incremental forever type backup.